So I'm here with Jenna Makhoul. Do you mind introducing yourself and tell people a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. So my name is Jenna Makhoul. Maybe some of you know me as Jenna Makhoul, but I am the founder of Homemade Match, and I have been doing this for about a year, formally. And yeah, we started Homemade Match to really help our community, and we'll get into that, I'm sure. But um, I live here in San Diego with my husband. We've been together for over 10 years at this point, married for about almost soon to be 5. And yeah, things are going great. You know, live here with both sides of our family, and we're very lucky and blessed to be close to family. But yeah,
Awesome. So I wanted to have you on to talk a little bit about obviously what you do with the
yes.
matchmaking thing, but also about relationships in the church as a whole, because I
Mhm.
think that's something both you and I, as well as others I've talked to, are noticing like it's a little weird and
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be quite as weird. And so I'm hopefully the goal of this conversation is just kind of to break down some of that and to kind of address some
Yeah.
of the issues that we're facing in the church as young single people trying to find spouses. So I guess kind of starting out with that, I know
Mhm.
you kind of gave a little bit of an introduction to Homemade Match. How did you get into matchmaking, and what
Yeah.
made you want to start a business doing that?
Okay. Yeah, there's many reasons. Obviously, this is a great question. So I've been part of the Antiochian Orthodox Church my entire life, and my family is Christian Palestinian. So I grew up within the church and worked on many different organizations and obviously volunteered a lot and on a national level as well, whether it being with Soyo or other, the Orthodox Young Professionals conferences and such. So I've pretty much been around the community enough to know, hey, what are the pitfalls like we're going to talk about later. And so yes, we started this business because there's personal reasons, and then there's other reasons as well. I was going through a crossroads in my life where I felt unfulfilled by what I was doing, and I knew I had potential to do more. And like I said, so previously I helped friends and family find love who are now married with children. And I guess I've always been like that people person that can see connections maybe before they're about to happen, or before someone else can see them, before they can actually see them themselves. And so I have 3 couples who are married with children and doing well, thank God. And it came to the point where people would come to me saying, hey, Jenna, do you have any friends or family, or do you know someone, that could potentially work for my brother, for my sister, for myself? And so I saw such a need for for good, deserving people, and just wondered what is going on. What's happening in the world that's not working for these people who there are essentially no red flags. They have all of the good qualities and characteristics, and why is it not happening for them? So we dug deeper and figured out. We'll be discussing more as well the reasons for this, and so essentially going back to what I was saying, it started off as being a crossroads, not feeling fulfilled in what I was doing, and applying to different avenues and almost getting there. And it got to the point where I had been through a bunch of interviews for a company I was really interested in, and going to do well, and knew I was going to do well. And I told my husband, if I don't get this after the 4th interview, with the CEO, and it was wonderful, had great connections with everyone there. I know Homemade Match is where I'm supposed, like, the path I'm supposed to pursue. And so after you know after not getting that job because I was told I wasn't nurturing enough, which it was just a blatant, like, you know sign from God. Hey, you know what? Uh, if you know me, I try to be as nurturing as possible. And so it was kind of just like, hey, this is the path I need to go on. And ever since, God has provided every step of the way for Homemade Match. And we're very blessed to be able to help the people that we have and continue helping the people in our database, and, God willing, more people in the future.
Another question I had, kind of stemming from that, why do you think people don't matchmake anymore? And as an extension of that question, what do you think are some of the problems that people have, or maybe not the problems that people have, but the problems that are actually objectively there with dating apps?
Yeah. So two-part question. Why don't people matchmake? And then what are the problems with that, with the dating apps?
Mhm.
Well, first of all, people do matchmake. It's still out there. It's just not a viable, affordable solution for regular people. You can be part of databases, and essentially the paying client is the one who's paying the big bucks to have the service, and they're recruiting for them. But there's really nothing like homemade match for our specific community, whether it's Christianity in general. And so another reason why we decided to create homemade match is because we wanted to give a viable solution for people, for normal people who don't want to spend $6,000 to potentially find a match, or don't even have the means to spend $6,000 plus to find a match. So, but it is still important to them, right? And so this is another reason why we started Homemade Match and decided to keep it affordable. So yes, there are matchmakers out there. There have been for thousands of years, right? It's just there isn't something specific for our demographic, and it's not very affordable. Now, as far as the dating apps go, in the beginning of the dating app culture, it was exciting, right? It was new. Everyone was joining and excited to be a part of it and giving it a real chance. I think, I even remember when I first started, when I first heard of the idea, and I thought it was interesting. But anyways, it has become so incredibly just toxic, unfortunately, to the point where half of the population, women, are receiving too many messages and feeling overwhelmed. And then the other half of the population, men, are not receiving any messages whatsoever. So where's the disconnect these days? And we really dove into that and kind of, tried to figure out, why is this? It's a mix of things, unfortunately. So, we can discuss the pitfalls and the issues of dating apps all day long. Essentially, what it is 3 photos and 15 words to describe yourself.
Right.
So it's very hard to make a decision of, do I find this person to be marriage material or not, whether they even put that on their profile or not.
Yeah, I think there's like you, I think there's a lot of issues with dating apps, and you were kind of touching on a lot of them that I have.
Mhm.
It's dehumanized, it's
Absolutely.
depersonalized, it commodifies people, and it reduces people to images on a screen, and that is not really an ideal way of assessing a person, whether or not they're a compatible spouse for you. And I think it also accentuates the um the divisions between men and women because of what it is. Because like you were talking about, like all these women are getting all these matches, and then these men are not, and it just creates more divide between men and women.
Mhm.
It also leads to a lot of disrespect, to be honest, um,
Absolutely.
on both sides.
Mhm.
It leads to immature behavior like ghosting. Um,
Cowardly
it
behavior.
it incentivizes cowardice on the part of
Mhm.
men. Like they think, oh, I'll have this dating app, so I don't need to go out and approach women, and incentivizes being attention grabbing on the part of women because that's how you get matches. And I think ultimately it's not intended. It's not necessarily intended to get people married.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's my laundry list of complaints. I'll
Yeah,
let you.
absolutely. So there's a couple of things that you brought up. uh, it's funny because it's a little off topic, but I'll explain. You did mention that guys will tend to go on these dating apps so that they don't have to approach people in real life. And it is true. Sometimes I feel certain clients come to Homemade Match to pacify the idea of looking for a match without actually having to do anything. And so
Mm.
I'm always encouraging and asking, hey, what are you doing outside of Homemade Match to, get a date or potentially go, find someone? Because you can't, we're a tool, but it shouldn't be solely relied on, because we're matching people based off of not just our algorithm, but we have that personal connection as well, where I'm getting to know all of my clients, and we have marriage and family therapists who are also doing the same, and we even ask certain people to answer a few questions on video so that we can get a little bit more information and see how they interact that way. But anyways, my point is, so essentially we do encourage not Homemade Match not being your only option, and don't put your eggs in all in one basket. Essentially, we've all heard that saying. So but yeah.
Do you think this is kind of a sub question, and do you think there's a difference between your mainstream like dating apps and dedicated dating sites?
uh
Like, is there a difference
yeah.
between Tinder
Mhm.
and eHarmony or whatever?
Mhm. Potentially a slight difference. And I think people who are on eHarmony, for example, may be a little more eager and ready. So we have people in our database. We try to cultivate a database that is, we're ready. You're ready to move forward. This is not a dating option. This is a date to marry option, and we can talk a little bit more about that as well. I think they're a little more serious. They're a little bit more old school, and because their algorithms uh, require a lot more information, right? You're not just putting three photos in 15 words. It's a plethora of categories you're filling out in order for them to provide a match for you. Same process for us as well. So maybe a little bit more. Dating apps, they're a little flighty, right? Unfortunately, there's a lot of hookup culture. There's a lot of just swipe culture, which it facilitates like this, instant gratification, dopamine hit, even, or even just like you said, dehumanizing and all the above.
Yeah, it's definitely not. I think there are degrees of ideal, I guess. Like personally, I'm like I'm never going the Tinder route.
Hmm.
Once upon a time, shamefully,
See,
I
but
was there,
it was
but
a different culture
it
when it
is.
first
Well,
started.
it's entirely. It's very like you said. It's very hookup culture
Hmm.
focused, and it's not intended to get you married. It's intended to hook you up with someone. So I do think that there is a difference between dating apps and sites, but there
Hmm.
are, not all are created equally ultimately.
No.
So, um, another question I had for you is just this is something that everyone's talking about is there's a lot of people coming to the church
Hmm.
nowadays, and a lot of them happen to be young men. Um, what do you see as some common pitfalls that you see men falling into when it comes to relationships in the church? And what are some things that you think they can do to better prepare themselves for marriage?
Yes. So there is a large influx of male uh, catechumens in the church, right? And I think one of the pitfalls that I'm coming across the most is they're assuming because you're coming to the church, you're going to easily find a partner. And unfortunately, it's not the truth. It is a bit lopsided as far as men versus women coming to the church. Doesn't mean that there's more men versus women. However, in some pockets of the U.S., it is the truth. Just keep that in mind. You're going to have to branch out. It's not just like you're joining this church and you're going to find someone there. It's not even, and it's not even true that you're going to join the church and find somebody in your community. So a lot of Homemade Match is connecting people even throughout the US. And we do ask, of course, are you willing to relocate for the right person? And what does that mean for you? Just a specific group of states or the United States in general. So another pitfall is, I am finding that there's a lot of over intellectualization of just like in general the theology and knowledge of the church. And while that is wonderful, we have to also keep in mind that not everybody is maybe where you are. If you're coming into the church, a new catechumen might be a lot more submersed. You have to meet people where they are, essentially. And
Right.
so, but also not expecting someone to be, not expecting someone to be where you are, and being okay to kind of lift them up with you. So just because people are going to church doesn't mean they're as spiritual and as submersed as you are, and being willing to grow with that person. Another pitfall is hesitation to pursue a person if there is someone you're interested in. During the Orthodox Young Professionals Conference, 99% of men said they were worried about approaching a woman and feeling that they would become or come off predatory. And my response to that is, women, know your audience, right? If you're going to the gym, maybe not the best time to approach someone, but when you're in the setting of the church, women are also looking for the same thing. They're wanting you to approach them because we have a more traditional set of values, because we value the man taking the responsibility of that. And of course there are modern women too that have no problem approaching you. But at the end of the day, most of the database that we have, especially in the people that we work with, especially within the Orthodox Church, more conservative, right? We're wanting those old traditions and wanting to be courted and wanting to be asked out. So I think I think the men are kind of overcomplicating it in a sense, and it's really that simple. Don't take rejection personally. It's, and I understand that it's very hard. You have to be in a place that you are so just like emotionally stable and to the point where that you're going to be taken care of, and God's not going to leave you on the sidelines. If you truly want a partnership and a relationship, I don't believe that it's your vocation, as a lot of other denominations would say, to be single. I think we were put on this earth to procreate and to love and to multiply, and that's the simplicity of it. So, like, for example, instead of feeling worried about, am I going to get rejected, just go for it. Hey, I'd love to grab coffee if you're free this afternoon, or hey, are you available for dinner? I'd love to get to know you better. Keeping it that simple rather than worrying about all of the extra fluff around it, or the whole idea is, do you want to get to know this person? It's not, am I going to marry this person? It's more just, can I be friends with this person first? Can we build a foundation from there and move forward? So I think we need to keep it simple.
Yeah. I think your point about I think you said something like 90% of men were like overthinking approaching women. I
Yeah.
think I've heard a similar statistic elsewhere that like something like 87% of men who like are attracted to a woman are nervous about approaching her and then don't approach her. And so, at least on the men's side of things, like that is something that could be improved upon, because if you're interested, like you have to especially like if you're talking about a non-toxic, like healthy relationship, the man does need to be kind of leading in that way. Um, as far as a couple of things that I think maybe just my perspective on things that
Yeah.
men could do to prepare themselves for marriage a little bit better. Um, And I'm a single dude I'm an Orthodox single dude on the internet, so who cares what I have to say? But at the same time, these are the things that
It's
I'm
your
trying to
experience.
apply in my own life.
Yeah.
So,
And your
I think,
experience matters, Bailey.
right. I think for both men and women,
Uh-huh.
this just in general, make Christ your number one priority.
Absolutely.
And then a lot of these other things can be applied to both men and women, but these are the things that I think specifically men need to work on. And depending on what situation they're in their life, they may need more work in one area or another. But
Hmm.
um, quit porn if
Yes.
that's an issue. Quit.
Hmm.
Uh, get out of debt and be able to provide for family.
Absolutely.
Work out. Become socially adept and actually approach women at church, like you were saying. We were talking about this earlier with the dating app thing. It has created a culture of men not approaching women, and so women just don't expect men to approach them anymore. So if you're a guy and you actually do approach a woman, then it's like you're doing something that not most men are not doing. So you're
Hmm.
probably going to stand out just by doing that. So
Exactly. Yeah, it's true. So going back to what you were saying, yes, this is something that I tell most of my clients. For example, I had a client who was looking for something specific, and I was trying to get him to understand, hey, if you need to become what you're looking for, you need to work out. You need to make sure that you are emotionally stable. Do the work, do the mental health work that's needed, right? Because sometimes there are things, even if you think there aren't, there are things that you could potentially improve on, right? Obviously, your spiritual health is number one. I do agree. Whether it's making sure you're attending confession, making sure you're working with a spiritual father to help get you there, and also be the man and the provider and the leader to salvation that you need to be, right? Because it is a big responsibility that you're taking on as a husband. And so don't fool yourself thinking that you're ready because you want it so badly. Do the things essentially just like Father Josiah Trenum said,
mhm.
write out the laundry list of what you're looking for and become each one of those, whether it's a self-confident woman that you're looking for, do things to strengthen your confidence, whether it is becoming financially stable, get yourself out of debt as much as possible. Now, the list goes on. However, I do want to stress that you can be a whole person, right? While still working on some of these things. So just because you're not 100% through that list, don't hinder yourself from potentially meeting someone until you are through that list. Be open.
Mm.
Now, there are some things that hold more weight than others, of course. So take that into consideration and maybe consult someone. We're here for help. Consult your spiritual father. I'm consult our therapists who are also Orthodox. I think therapy is a great thing, but you have to make sure that you're working with the right therapist. Um, and and yes, so become, and going back to the client, become the person that you want. And so become, and also has to, the social aspect is huge as well. Now, another pitfall that I'm finding with men is that they have a picture in their head and they're not willing to deviate from it, right? They have a picture in their head and they're just not willing to deviate from it. So one thing I often tell clients is, you know, just because the person doesn't come in the package you expected, I would hate for you to pass up a perfectly good person who checks off all of your boxes, who is emotionally stable, who is and that has the spiritual life that you're looking for and wants the same goals and values and traditions, right? Because they don't fit that perfect picture that you were expecting. Give them a chance. Attraction does grow. And I know for men especially, if the person doesn't look exactly like they expected, it's an immediate no. And it saddens me when I see that, because the person, they're just as deserving and have the same just need to give love and to create a house and a home and all of the above. And as a married person and someone who's been in a relationship for many years, it's almost like you don't know what you don't, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're in this relationship, it's kind of like, okay, I understand how attraction changes and grows, and things are on a spectrum. It's not always, this person is not going to look exactly the same way from the moment you found them. And so I'm trying to get people to see past that and to know that we're looking in. We're trying to look inside someone's soul and see, is this person going to be a good provider for my spiritual health, for my family, for salvation ultimately, right? Rather than, sorry, she doesn't fit my ideal checklist of what makes a woman attractive. And so it's less like that for the women. Women are much more inclined to give men chances, based off of them not being exactly their perfect Brad Pitt picture, for example.
That's interesting, because in my experience, it's been the exact opposite.
Yeah, well, that is, maybe the women in our database are more serious. So that could be it. But yes, that is my experience. And look, you get outliers, of course. Like, don't get me wrong here.
Maybe I just collect all the outliers.
Well, it happens, but we're gonna work on it. But yeah, that definitely something. Another very interesting thing that I've come across is this idea of a homestead wife, right? And so it's really funny because my clients in the South and some parts of, the Midwest and such are looking for that stay-at-home wife that wants to take care of the family and cook and homestead and have chickens and all of the above, right? We have those clients who are looking for that. But then on the coasts, we also have clients who are, I want to pursue a career. I want to go back to work after having children, which it's not necessarily a bad thing. But, and on the coast, it's a little bit different economically because their 2-income households is necessary. And it just is what it is. But it's, again, another question that Homemade Match asks so that we can really see where everyone places their values, right? And it could be a big deal breaker for some people. But yes, recently hearing a lot of this, like, I want a homestead eventually. And so that's been interesting because living in San Diego, California is very different for me. I never had the idea of having chickens. I see it online, but
Yeah. So kind of reversing that,
yes.
to kind of, flip it on its head, what pitfalls do you see women falling into with regard to relationships, and what are some things that you think they could do to better prepare themselves for marriage?
There are a lot of the same ones, right? We passively waiting for someone to just become Prince Charming and sweep you off your feet. Doesn't happen like that anymore, unfortunately. And I can kind of explain more. Definitely another one is, unfortunately, for both parties, just a plethora. There's just a plethora of misinformation on social media these days, right? One of my favorite ones that I can't stand is, if he wanted to, he would. And I see like a lot of women and young women posting these certain things and liking them. And it's just not something I believe in. If he wanted to, he would. People are very different. You have to meet people where they are. You don't know where someone's head is spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all of the above. And a lot of times men want to, they just don't know. and no offense, not everybody, but they want the same thing you want. They're just not sure how to get there. And it's the same for women. They want the same, but honestly, swipe culture has ruined that for us, has ruined that communication, has ruined that, those connections and moving forward to the next step in a relationship. So I would say turn off all communication that does not have to do with the church, as far as or to turn off all advice that you're getting, right? If you're following certain pages, just unfollow them. Follow Father Joseph, Josiah Trenum. Follow Patriotistic Nectar. Wait,
Patriotistic Nectar. Yeah.
Yes, Patriotistic Nectar. Sorry, my bad. And then follow the people who align with your values and goals, and rather than the secular information and advice that has nothing to do with your goals, right?
I agree. Yeah, a lot of the secular culture when it comes to relationships has seeped its way into the church, and that's true of a lot of things. It's true of politics, culture, like all of that is seeping into the church, and we have to be careful to not fall prey to ideas that are not orthodox.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. So another pitfall, maybe for both parties, right, is this entitledness. I have come across a lot of entitled, just potential clients. We don't always accept every single person for a lot of different reasons, but and again, cultivated by social media and the swipe culture, but there's just a huge air of entitlement just within the group of young adults these days. It's like, well, I deserve, and I think I deserve, and he should be, and he should know. And it's just like, you are not a 10, right? No one is a 10. I tell this to everybody. So, everyone deserves the same amount of respect. Everyone deserves the same amount of just grace and understanding, and just to kind of we really have to humble ourselves. I'll say that. So people think that they're entitled to a man that makes 6 figures and can provide a home and a 3-carat ring or whatever it may be, and it's just like, let's take a step back and realize that you can't provide that. So what makes you think someone just a few years older than you can? So we're working on that. There's a lot of coaching involved, right? Where we're trying to bring people down to a more digestible level of understanding when it comes to the opposite sex, whether it's men or women, and just help them find more commonalities and just understand that, hey, we're all a work in progress, and that's okay. So yes, the entitlement is definitely an issue, but I only see it on the coasts for the most part. So just to piggyback onto that as well, I think people expect the opposite sex or whoever they're dating or courting at the time to be this perfect person, and that they should just know how I want to be communicated to and with and all of the above. And so, for example, I had a couple who I speak to the male, and he's like, everything is wonderful and everything's going great, and we're so excited and things are moving in the right direction. I'm like, great, that sounds great. I speak to the woman, everything is great, however, he's not communicating as much as I would like him to communicate, and I'd like to have a more set schedule or whatever it may be. And I was just like, okay, wonderful. And how did he take it when you mentioned that? And she was like, oh, well, he should just know this. And I said, well, he doesn't know this. You need to for the same exact reason that you're complaining, you need to communicate what you're expecting or what you're hoping for, so that you guys can come to a happy medium. Now, it may be now keep in mind, if there's other issues there, clinginess or whatever, we can work through those together.
Right.
but if he thinks everything's going well, he's going to continue in that path, right? Unless you were to say, hey, I would really like to speak to you more often. I'd really like to have more communication with you throughout the week, whatever it may be. But we have to give people grace and see it from their perspective sometimes,
Yeah. So I think my advice to women. Oh boy, here we
Yes.
go. Here comes the torches and pitchforks. But I think, like I said, with the men, make Christ your number one priority.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
the other things that I think are more specific to women would be maybe learn practical skills or have something that you can offer to a man. Just to be blunt, let your yes be yes and let your no be no. That can be very, as you were talking about earlier, like men are dense and we are not mind readers. Like we need
Mm-hmm.
to know sometimes, and sometimes it requires a little bit of over communicating.
Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely.
communicating is better than not communicating and just guessing. Um, don't ghost ever. I think
Mm-hmm.
and this is true for men and women. If you don't know how to handle conflict, you're not ready. Because
Absolutely.
if you ghost someone, you're not ready. If
Mm-hmm.
you cannot handle conflict before you get married, what makes you think you're going to be able to handle conflict after you get married? So that's
Absolutely.
a huge indicator to me if I'm seeing someone and they just ghost or don't communicate or have major trouble communicating conflict. That's a red flag to me because, like, well, you haven't matured enough to learn how to handle conflict. Um, and then the last thing I would say is actually kind of what you said about men, and that would be to not be so picky.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I know a lot of women who are like unhappy that they're single, and yet at the same time, they have this unreasonable laundry list of things that they want in a man. And if he's not like 6 feet and making six figures and has big arms and big hands, like they're not going to go out with them. So I had a friend actually,
Mm-hmm.
um, shout out to this couple. They're married now. So shout out to Tony and Julie. Um, this girl, before she met Tony, she was wanting to get married and just couldn't. And so she would go on any date with anyone that asked her out.
Mm.
And I'm like, wait, you went on dates with anyone? Like I've met women that are so entitled that they will not go on any
Mm-hmm.
date unless he is perfect. And you don't know that until you go out. So I don't know, obviously that can be applied to men as well, but definitely have a little bit of grace and reasonable expectations and give people a chance. You never know.
Yes.
That's my 2 cents.
I agree with you. Another reason why we do things blind, because I don't want anyone coming in with any, ideas of yes or no when it comes to an interaction at Homemade Match. But yes, going back to what you said, I think that it's wonderful for people to be open minded and to give people chances, as long as you're not getting to the point of becoming jaded or feeling burnt out, because it's going to just be counterproductive for yourself. And so I always warn clients of that, because, yeah, sometimes I'm like, okay, this is a match made in heaven. It's going to be a slam dunk. Like, trust me. And other times I'm like, you guys match up really well on paper, but I'm not 100% sure how the interaction is going to go. You guys are both good, deserving people, but let's give it a try. As long as they're willing to give it a try, we'll do that. We'll facilitate that match. If I feel the client is kind of like a little jaded or becoming discouraged, I won't present that to them just because of where they are. I have to meet everyone where they are. So yes, I do agree with you regarding the entitledness, regarding the being open-minded and giving people chances. And you also mentioned, what were the other things you mentioned? You also
Not
mentioned
not ghosting.
Yes, not ghosting.
But your yes be
Ghosting,
yes.
such a huge problem. I do agree with you. We help a lot of people through relationships, even outside of Homemade Match, right? And yes, ghosting happens a lot, unfortunately. And there's two ways you can deal with ghosting. And now the internet will tell you don't text her back, don't text him back, whatever it may be, and that's fine. There are two acceptable approaches to me and to us. If the relationship has been established enough to where you can call that person out, then absolutely call them out, and I'll tell you how to do that. And if the relationship is still, you haven't met this person, let's put it this way. You haven't met this person, you haven't even, not even once, not even one date, and you've just been communicating via FaceTime phone calls and texting and such, right?
Mhm.
I would say don't reach out to that person. They owe you nothing because you have not met, you have not put, they haven't, either of you have not, put in the effort to meet each other. And maybe it was there, but I would advise not to reach out to that person and kind of let it be. Now, if you've met a person and you've gone out on a date or two or whatever it may be, and then they've kind of like pulled back and ghosted you in that way, then I would absolutely send a very simple text message that will definitely get results. So if you've heard of The Art of Negotiation, it's in that book. I would just send one text message that says, have you given up on this question mark, right? Send. And it elicits something in them to where they want to respond and either defend themselves or fall on their sword. And if they can fall on their sword and say, you know what, I apologize, I got really bit, whatever it may be, whatever the excuse is, they're, come to me, we'll talk about it. Whatever their excuse is, give them a little bit of grace if they have potential. And I say this because we're human at the end of the day. God has literally given us thousands of endless chances. And I'm not saying do that for everyone, but if there is potential and you do see this person, being a potential good partner in the future, even a little bit of potential there, just, give them grace. Give them grace is all I'm going to say. Obviously with discretion.
Right. Yeah. So I guess kind of moving on to the next
Yeah.
topic, I think there is definitely an epidemic of loneliness today. And kind of like you mentioned earlier, I thought, sort of naively, that perhaps that just becoming Orthodox would make this a little bit easier.
Yeah.
So why do you think there are so many young people struggling to find a suitable spouse today? It's kind of a big question, broad topic, but
Yeah. Broad
and we probably touched
question.
on a little bit of it, but
Yeah. And honestly, it is a question that I get very often. There's so many reasons. There really are, whether it's geographical reasons, whether it's, lack of preparedness, whether it's, there's just so many reasons. It's a laundry list. I would say, so your question is, why are people essentially still single?
Mhm.
Well, I think like I mentioned earlier, everyone is at a different point in their life, right? And we have to, it's very hard. People are getting married a lot older these days. And whether it's for school reasons or whatever it may be, the pandemic played a huge role in delaying people as well. So we're seeing a lot of people who are just feeling very out of place because 2-3 years of their life has been they've been pushed forward 2-3 years in their life when they realized they maybe would have been in a different place. So it's understandable to speak about loneliness. Unfortunately, it's a product of the swipe culture. It's a product of the dating culture these days, because it's instant gratification. We're always thinking that there could be potentially something better out there, or moving on swiftly without actually giving the relationship a chance. And we talk about this all the time. There's two kind of ways that we can think of dating to marry, right? Dating to marry are, everyone likes to say that that's what they're doing and that is their goal. That's wonderful. But are you getting into a relationship and the first time something goes south, you're running away and deciding that this is not for you? Or are you actually dating this person and working through those trials and tribulations? We tell our clients all the time, we have clients who specifically say, oh yeah, we don't fight, we don't argue, we don't, everything's wonderful. And I'm just like, no, you need to pray for some hardship there, because if you're not going to, figure out the ways in which you recover from an issue, or the ways in which you actually argue, you'll set yourself up for failure in the future, unfortunately. I do strongly encourage our people in general to date to marry and stick through those issues. See a spiritual father when necessary. Make sure to bring a spiritual father into the relationship early on, so that you have someone you can trust and fall back on, but also safety net, essentially, right? Because the number one issue why people are not married today, I will be honest with you, it's exactly this. They run away without, on the first sight of mishap or whatever, or, the first mishap, rather than sticking it through and pushing through and really finding forgiveness, which is a huge issue as well. So that's why I would say this flightiness and instant gratification has literally driven us to say, okay, well, I can move on from this and find someone new. And we're stuck in this cycle, essentially. We really are. And so another reason why we decided, hey, let's take this back. Let's take this back to home, to matchmaking, and really vet people and say, hey, we're giving you this person that you are compatible with, right? You're compatible on a lot of these different important topics, important categories. And it's up to you to figure out the connection from there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of profound thoughts on this, but
yeah,
to simplify it, I think it would probably boil down to three main things. Social media.
Yes.
Dating apps, porn, and unrealistic expectations as a result of those three things. Mm-hmm. I think those contribute to a lot of our dysfunction in society, not just with relationships, but in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so I personally, I'm done with the dating app thing. I'm done with that. And most of the time I'm not even on social media either. My life is way better without all of those things, and obviously porn as well. So absolutely, everyone try cutting those out and see how your life changes, and then go from there.
We're happy to work with our clients one-on-one. We're happy to work with our clients one-on-one to help them through these little issues, right? So we continue, even our matches that are doing well, thank God, currently we continue to check in and follow up with them to make sure that, hey, how are you guys dealing with certain things? Have certain things come up that maybe you're not sure about? We work through anything and everything, right? So it's important to us to make sure that things are going well, and if it's not, to help you out of it as well. We've actually helped 3 different couples out of engagements, not through Homemade Match, but in general, people come to us for help just in the community and around, and we're happy to help. When you get to the sacrament of marriage, right, you become your own family rather than becoming part of one large family with your extended families. So just like Christ intended it, you become your family, and your family is the most important unit, right? Your extended family becomes your extended family. Your parents and siblings become your extended family. And rather than you hugging your family and your wife coming into that, it should be you and your husband hugging each other, and your families hugging you guys and supporting you, rather than your wife joining into the family or your husband joining into your family. So
Right.
those specific issues. We've even helped a couple of people through divorce. Unfortunately, they already made the decision and went through it and have come to us for extra support. Essentially, so it's not ideal, but it has happened, and we do have some divorcees in homemade match, and it's just
It
part
is
of
what
it,
it
I
is.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we are here as a resource for anyone who's having issues at any stage.
Gotcha. So you kind of mentioned this earlier about people wanting to like homestead and be super
Yes.
trad. What do you think about this trend of some people, not everybody, but a sizable portion of people who are returning to tradition, whether that's with the Orthodox faith or when it comes to being more traditionally minded with relationships? What do you make of that? Do you think this is an affect, or do you think this is actually something that's going to stick around? What are your thoughts?
Well, history is cyclical. And I think that has a lot to do with it. And people are feeling very lost in a post COVID world. And so, what is where is or what's comforting, right? Going back to our roots and orthodoxy, number one being the ultimate root essentially, and just like I said, history is cyclical. So we've become so toxic, overgrown, just out of touch, all of the above, that I think a lot of people are realizing what matters, what makes sense, what is real, and what's going to make us better, essentially. And I think that is why people are turning to a healthier lifestyle, healthier food, taking, like I said, with the chickens and small farms and these micro farms and such.
Mhm.
Uh, and it's just a result of, like I said, this culture that has been overgrown and just so incredibly toxic. People are looking for something real and a real community. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think it's completely normal and natural. And the more we can get back to, even though I live in a city and have grown up in a city my whole life, I do see a huge need to protect the nuclear family in this country, which is another huge reason why we started Homemade Match. Part of becoming a trad, family, let's just say, or even just like a homestead family, it's part of that, protecting the male and female roles in the community and in life in general, and having a family that knows God and is healthy, and you know what I mean by healthy, not just spiritually, not just mentally, but obviously physically, which is a very attractive thing to have. A wife stay at home who's able to cook, or even a husband, whatever it may be, or you guys are working as a team in some way, right? So who can cook and take care of the family in a way that is not how we've grown up the last 15 years
Right.
or so, maybe more.
Yeah, I think a lot of the there's it's a mixed bag. I
Yeah.
think it's broad strokes definitely a good thing that people are realizing that the way they've been operating, the way things have been going is kind of broken and not
Hmm.
working. And in order to like get back on track, they have to realize where they got off track. And so
Absolutely.
they look back to the past and say, okay, well, it wasn't as difficult for our parents or our grandparents or whoever. Um, and so what were they doing that we weren't doing?
Hmm.
And some of the answer comes down to like matchmaking. Some of it is more traditional, like, the man works, the wife stays home. Um, it's these kind of aspirations that I think in general are a good impulse. I think at the same time, though, at least on social media, there can be an affect of it to where you have like these trad influencers
Hmm.
that are like, it's not, you're not really. I mean, they're responding to a need, but they're also manipulating the fact that there's like an organic desire to go back and kind of um, live a more traditional lifestyle, and then there's a fake um, supplanted version of that. I think that both exist, if that makes
Okay.
sense. Anyway, that's just, I don't know,
So
my observations about it.
yeah. So just because I'm curious, so elaborate a little bit more because maybe I'm missing something. So you think that there's like a real push for to be, you know, to go back to our roots versus a fake um people who are doing it for show essentially, or
Yeah, well, I think like specifically like Instagram
Mhm.
influencers are there's
Well,
some
they've
of them.
monetized this idea, right?
Yes,
So you're
exactly.
right.
Yes. And I think some have observed that um men were not happy with how women were presenting themselves, maybe in a political sense. Like we're
Okay.
talking about like the blue hair crazy people,
Mm-hmm.
etc. You know. And so women adapt to that to be more in line, the meme of the trad guy,
Yes.
the Chad, I have a friend that looks exactly like him, and I made him that his profile picture. Anyway, um that meme like came out, it was a meme, but it's like a joke because it's like there's a little bit of truth to it,
True.
but
True.
there's also, it's a joke and some people
Hmm.
take it a little too seriously. Anyway, I'm trying to like head off people at the pass on, where I think other people will respond, and maybe I'm not being super clear with it.
No.
But I do think there is a natural, organic desire for on both men and women to go
Mhm.
back to a more traditional lifestyle, and I think that is emblematic of why people were becoming Orthodox or even in some cases Catholic. Although I'd argue that's a little less traditional, but um, there's this impulse, the pendulum swing of the culture is kind of going back to tradition as a
Mhm.
whole, and I do think that's a natural reaction to things that have happened in recent
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
At the same time, I do think that there are some people who monetize, like you said, and
Mhm.
manipulate this and make it about attention,
Mhm.
and it's not actually quote unquote what they're looking. It's not actually trad. It's not what they're looking for.
Yes.
They're milking a fad, or what they perceive to be a fad. They're becoming a fad. They're like a
Mhm.
subsect of it. I don't know if that makes any
No,
sense
no, it
or if
does
that's
make sense.
more.
I understand. I understand. Yes.
That was kind of my ramblings. I don't know if that was coherent for people. If people want me to elaborate, maybe I can do a separate video where I actually like write things out and think about them, because I don't
Yeah.
know. It's just things that have been like mulling around in my head for a little while, um, and that I have seen in certain areas in
Mhm.
certain Orthodox churches that I've been to. Um, but speaking of the Orthodox community, um, I kind of wanted to ask you what what do you think Orthodox communities can do, whether that's priests or parishes or online groups, etc. What are some things they can do to foster better relationships between men and women?
So, I think that they're doing their best. But it could be better. Of course, there's room for improvement. The thing is, you wouldn't go to your gardener to ask about a headache type of a thing, right? So, they're trying to facilitate these different events. They're trying to priests is what I mean, matchmake, right? They're
Hmm.
trying to help the community as best as they know possible. Some may be better than others. I mean, I know that one of my priests, God rest his soul, he was wonderful and he was such an amazing spiritual father for me and my family. But I was like 17 and he was trying to set me up with somebody who was like 32. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to work. Also, I'm just 17. So what I mean by that is, bring us in. We're a resource. We're a tool. We're an option, of course, but facilitating deeper connections is really hard to do at a dinner, and Bible study, right? So I think the best way you can is to maybe help the people who are not able to. So, for example, attend the different pan-Orthodox events, attend the different, the OYPC, for example, the different specifically focused groups for singles. The
Connect conference.
Ancient Faith Singles Retreat, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Go to these things. And one way that the priests, church community can help is maybe for the people who can't potentially afford it, right, to go to all of these things, because they can be pricey. Who, whatever it may be, helping in that way is, like, I think probably the best case scenario, because yes, they're still having these events. Yes, they're doing their best. If we're in the area, I have multiple marriage and family therapists throughout the U.S. who are willing to help homemade match. Maybe bring one of them in to help facilitate things a little bit. At the Orthodox Young Professionals Conference, we were so grateful for the opportunity to be there and to host one of the nights where we were able to kind of create these icebreakers that were thought-provoking and got people to talk and get into different groups and whatnot, but then take it a step further and help people actually, ask someone out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or work through an issue in real time so that they have a better chance, basically, of potentially getting into a relationship. So it's like, everyone wants the same thing, but then how are we getting to the next step of actually getting that date? How are we getting to the next step of exchanging numbers? How are we getting to the courtship? So yes, we can't be too hard on the church, on the churches and on the parishes, because they are trying, but we need to think outside of the box, truly. Whether, like I said, helping raise money to attend these different retreats, or potentially bringing in someone who, there's therapists within all of the different communities, and as long as they're trusted and with the blessing of the priest, of course, bring them in to kind of help and facilitate and have these talks. It's nice to hear from our clergy, of course, but a different perspective, would be nice sometimes as well. So there's lots of I think everybody's trying their best, but we do have to, like I said, think outside of the box. Any suggestions?
So, employ matchmakers to come into your
Well,
church.
that would be ideal. Absolutely. I have worked with lots of different people. We do relationship coaching. We have online presence assessments that will help you with. Sometimes it's just like little corrections, little. Sometimes it's just little corrections. That's all that's really needed. And bringing light to something, like, for example, maybe don't share these political posts, or maybe let's change your profile picture from 2018, or it's little changes like that will kind of help, and then just push you in the right direction. Yeah.
I think another thing that could help, that you mentioned, like, parishes are doing what they can, but there are some parishes that aren't doing anything. And so having some young adults gathering.
Yes.
Now, it may be difficult depending on the parish, because I've been to some parishes that are fairly small, and they may not have a lot of young people, or there might be like 95% dudes that show up to the young adults thing. So, okay, just kind of related to that, obviously parishes do stuff for young people because they need each other. But what would you say for parishes or communities of parishes that are maybe, because I, like, when I was in the Nashville area, a lot of the parishes were kind of siloed off. to their jurisdictional kind of boundaries.
Yes.
And there was like a sizable young adults population, but it was really up to a friend of mine who was trying to coordinate that and facilitate people coming together, because you've got like 5 young people at this church or 15 at that church, and it's just like they don't know that other Orthodox group people exist in their community because they're stuck in their
Yeah.
one place that they go to. What do you think about parishes or communities that have, maybe like no young people at one
Mhm.
parish? Maybe there's like 1 or 2 young people that go there, and then there's another parish where there's like 15.
Mhm.
Or how do you think parishes could better facilitate these
Yeah.
things, maybe in a pan-Orthodox way that
I
gets
was
people
just gonna
together?
say, yes. So the best way is for your clergy or someone from your church. I would recommend it's the priest. Reach out on a pan Orthodox level, definitely, and bring in those other jurisdictions. The best and easiest and less um, financially straining way to get more people who are of the same faith, right? There are some parishes that have a designated person on the parish council that facilitates these types of events, right?
Okay, gotcha.
So, for example, at my church, we have the Women's Society, the Men's Club, and then a young adult club as well. So you can kind of find where you feel like you fit. The Women's Society and the Men's Club both have singles and married people as well, but the young adults is also has a mix as well, but mostly singles. But yes, I think that having a specific person at each church part of the board is essential. I know not every church has that, and obviously maybe it doesn't make sense at maybe it doesn't seem that it makes sense at every church, but there are, even if there's one person that you can help, then you are the person to be on that board. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And it's up to you to kind of pull together the community. So growing up, I did a lot of that. Growing up, that was, I was involved besides Soyo on a parish, diocese, and national level. It we did a lot of things outside of the church that pulled together the Christian community in San Diego. Just because you don't see this person as marriage material doesn't mean you can't be friends with them. And at Homemade Match, that is where we start. It is a video call just like this, essentially, where you're talking and we'll come on and say, hey, Bailey, meet Jenna. Jenna, meet Bailey. And you have a private space to talk for as long as you'd like. And we start off by saying, hey, this is an opportunity to potentially meet a new friend. See how if you find this person interesting, do you find them to be a good person? And if do you find them interesting enough to have another conversation with them? We're not saying, hey, you match with this person, go get engaged.
Right.
That's where people have like the anxiety comes in and it's not good. But the people who are most successful with us are the people who understand that and realize that it's starts with friendship and that are open-minded and give people real chances, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think wrapping up and kind of segueing from that question, if people are interested in your matchmaking services,
Yeah.
what's the process like, and what can they do to get started?
So I highly recommend having a 15-minute consultation with us first, whether it's with me or one of my marriage and family therapists. They know the process very, very well as well and can speak to it just as well as I can. Have that consultation first because we're not for everyone. There are people who sign up organically, which you can do if you read enough and you follow us and you've you can get the idea of how we operate for the most part. And also our website has all of the questions and everything answered. Now we do get people who sign up organically and then realize, oh, you don't share photos. It's completely confidential. So you're not going to share the person's name with me before we have a conversation? Absolutely not. And so that's why we highly recommend having the consultation so that we can talk to you and kind of run you through how the process works. And you can feel more comfortable making a decision one way or the other. Now, if from there, it's essentially signing up. There is an agreement and a code of conduct. This is just for safety. We're not locking anybody into any kind of 2 months, 6 months, 5 minutes, nothing like that. It's really just for safety. And then from there, we have an interview with you, and it's a monthly service fee. It's really, really affordable. And you just, we'll have monthly check-ins or as many check-ins as needed. But anyways, a monthly check-in. And that's pretty much how it works. If there's a match, we reach out to you right away. And if there isn't a match, then we have like I said, a monthly check-in to just keep the line of communication open. And so that's a very brief overview of how it works. But, there have been people where we had to say, hey, this doesn't seem like we're a good fit for each other. Like, for example, there was a client of mine or a potential client, let's just say, who basically said, hi, I need a woman with size 7 shoe, 115 pounds or lighter, needs to make 6 figures, needs to be extremely attractive. Oh, it needs to be this denomination of Christianity. And I was just like, I don't think this is right for you. Yeah. And so, and it's okay. And then other times, we go through the process and even have a match for the person and realize maybe this is not the best approach for you. So it's okay. We would rather have a intentional vetting process that helps weed through some of those people, and ultimately, it's just better outcome for our clients.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Thank you for your time, Jenna. If anyone has comments or questions or thoughts about these topics, this was intended, as I said at the beginning, to kind of be the start of conversations. I hope that more Orthodox people start talking about this issue. Kind of just to give some prologue, kind of something that birthed this interest in me is I was at the Connect conference, and I think I've told you this story, but I'll tell it for the people at home who are listening to this. There was a question that was I actually asked you was, why do you think so many young Orthodox people are having trouble finding a suitable spouse? And there were 3 speakers, and the whole room went silent, and like you could tell like it was on everybody's mind, but nobody said anything. And the priest, Father John, responded, and he was like, well, I don't know, but it's not your fault. And then he kind of elaborated and gave a few suggestions of things that he thought might be some of the solutions. And the other speakers chimed in as well. And that kind of established the basis for conversations that I had with other people that weekend. And it just became something that I'm aware of. And like, I know a lot of great people who are struggling with this and they're not there and they don't know how to fix where they are. So I think matchmaking is a key integral component of this. There's obviously improve yourself. There's spiritual reasons behind it too. But I hope that this will kind of be the beginning of a dialogue for people and how we can help our young people start families and get married. And like you said, bring together the nuclear family and keep it together.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me, and I'm always happy to discuss more and discuss other topics as well. But yes, we're very fortunate to have started Homemade Match and to be able to help people. And just if you feel the last message I want to leave everyone with is essentially, if you don't feel you're ready, but you have real intentions to be a spouse in the future, come to us. Let's talk at the very least, because there are many different avenues that we can help. and get you there. And it's sometimes just little tweaks that's all it takes, little corrections here and there. And so give us the opportunity to have a conversation with you and see how we can help or where we can, fine tune. And yeah, we're happy to.
What is it just homemadematch.com?
Yes, homemadematch.com. Our Instagram is also homemade underscore match. And we're available anytime. Our calendars are open to, for consultations on our website at any time. They're free, like I said. And we're looking forward to helping more and more people.
Awesome. Well, I'll leave links to those in the description, and people can check them out if they want, or if they just want to have conversations in the comments. I'm looking forward to the comments. So
yes,
yeah,
same.
Thank you.
I'll be there. All right. Thanks, Bailey. Take care.